Invincible in Pathfinder 2e. How can we use Invincible Season 1 as guidelines or inspiration for world building and for storytelling? This video will be divided up into chapters. This will be the first ever video I make with chapters involved in the making of this video. How are the chapters going to be done? Simple. Episode 1, it will be divided up by each episode. However, episode 7 and 8 will be combined into one. Because there's not much to say on them, as they're the finale and it's more of a conclusion. So yeah, let's get right into it and break down episode 1 now. Episode 1 is basically all about the world building of Invincible. It's also about the character Invincible, but for this video, we're not going to go over characters as much. That'll be for a seeker episode, that'll be for a future video. Anyways, there's a lot of ideas episode 1 can bring up for people. Basically, the world of Invincible episode 1 is the world where you have the Guardians of the Globe, you have the superheroes everywhere. To translate that into Pathfinder, you can have a world full of different classes, sorcerers, wizards, barbarians, all these. Instead of superpowers, it's just the different classes all integrated all together, which can be done very easily. And you can have, instead of the Guardians of the Globe, you can have the Guardians of the Globe maybe, but like instead you can have the Grand Defensors, like legendary of heroes that come together and that. You can make episode 1 a one session thing and have it end with a cliffhanger of all the characters dying. And you're like, what? The mystery opens. So you could do a campaign split up into 2 parts mostly, or this is going to be like a session seal where it sets up the tone or the mystery involved. So you have characters that are pre-built, that every player gets to play, and you could either make it be like all the characters being Grand Defensors and then they die at the end of the session, or make it be like make the party be a bunch of people that want to be like the Grand Defensors, want to be just like them, and then they hear about the murder of the Guardians of the Globe. That can open a can of worms. What else do I have here for notes? A lot of classes. You could also take Mark's story about a person you could have an Omni-Man and Mark kind of thing, but that's gonna be more for the character focused video, which would be similar in concept to this. But yeah, there's a lot of ideas you can go with, but that mystery could be what your campaign is built around. Why everyone knows who did the murder, but no one knows who is the murderer. Or maybe it could be no one knows who killed the Guardians of the Globes. It could be different ways. You could do 2 types of mysteries where the party knows who killed, but they don't know why. So you could have a suspenseful moment where they're not trying to get killed by the person. There's a lot of different ideas you can work with. That's episode 1. Now we'll move on to episode 2. So I see you guys in chapter 2. Chapter 2. This has a lot of different ideas, but if we're continuing we're continuing of episode 1, we can just have a mystery hint or whatever. This Invincible season 1 is all centered around a mystery. So all these episodes you can have hints, some form of mystery. Whatever way you do it, you have to build it up bit by bit until the reveal. Invincible and Omni-Man reveal does very well. But yeah, anyways, there is still a lot of ideas. I'm just briefly mentioning that anyways. But If you're just looking at episode 2 by itself, there's a lot of different ideas we can go with. You could introduce, in this episode, there's the Teen Titans that are introduced, or Teen Team, rather. You can have the players, you could start your campaign as this new team or something. Or just have a team of NPCs, you could. There's a lot of ways you can do this. This episode is focused on the external threats and facing from another dimension. This episode, I won't go into the nitty gritty, but there's a lot of different ideas you could do. So you could have a combat focused section itself, and then you could have it be like each time the enemies come back, there's a puzzle element involved because the enemies keep on evolving. Or you could just have a random persistent enemy, or just one random encounter. There's a lot of different things you could do for episode 2. But that ends episode 2, and we will move on to episode 3 in a sec. Episode 3, we can continue. There's a lot of different elements from this. If we're going with the mystery element, and working as episode 3 as a continuation of episode 2 and 1, we can have the demon detective. This guy can be the character that, if you're fully going into the mystery element, the demon detective is the best. So you can have moments of tension and everything for it. You can have it also be you could also have problems with the party or tensions within the party, like between characters if you wanted to, or have a rival team, because this episode is about constructing the new Guardians of the Globe. So you could have another team that has the same goal as the party, but is rivals to the main party team. So there's a lot of leeway you could walk with that. This guy, Dr. Seismic, is in this episode, and he's basically the odd guy. Call him. So you could have a druid, you could have an artificer that messes around with sound, because his whole gimmick is sound. You can have a combat encounter, but you could also just have it be a Horus Cave dungeon to make it more interesting. With puzzle elements, you can just design your own and then have it based around sound or Dr. Seismic's abilities. And then you could have Dr. Seismic be your main villain of a campaign. That's a idea itself that's not connected to the other episodes, but if we're looking at episode 3 by itself. But yeah, that's the ideas for episode 3. We'll move on to episode 4 now in a sec. Episode 4 each episode continues the mystery, gives a mystery hint, and not fully going into the mystery hint, but because there's a lot of leeway you can go with the mystery. We can talk more about the mystery in the final, in 7 and 8. But anyways, chapter 4, episode 4, has a lot of different ideas, but its whole episode is about going to Mars, and Invincible is acting as an escort to protect. So you could do something like a quest line to help. The party has to escort a bunch of people to the kingdom for something important, some political peace deal or some form of negotiations that it can't go bad. And the other idea is you could either have them right beside them, or they have to do it in secret, in stealth, because they're given a very important quest to do in secret. There's a lot of leeway, but you can go into a lot of political elements if you want, or this nation kind of thing going on. There's a lot, like you could have conflicts over nations, disagreements, and so you're trying to make sure that nothing happens to the escorts, or it will be hell or something. You can think of any scenario or something like that. Anyways, let's move on to episode 5. Episode 5. This episode is focused on crime. So this more about a Kime Lord called Machine Head, and he's you could have a frozen festival at Kime, and the whole idea is what happens if you replace the Kime Lord with a worse Kime Lord. There's that you can have a manipulative character, tied to rise to power, tied to use the heals or the pie for help against, or you could have someone morally grey, trying to gain power over Kime, and so he can make lives for his people better or something. There's a lot of leeway you could do, but you can make it black and white or make it complicated. Kime, you could have different style for Kime cities, but it really depends. If we're connecting this to the other episodes without the mystery, this is more world building itself. You're building on the ideas that have already been established. And then at the end of this episode, you could have the characters faced with, they're all like have intense moment too. So you could have, yeah, or you can just have a very simple thing, which is like, oh, the Yet ropes, they took over a place and Kime and that. It doesn't have to be complex. It can just be simple, like get these bad guys out of the forest, like have a forest controlled by bad guys, by Kime lords or something. There's a lot of different ideas you can go with it. Now we move on to episode 6. And then we'll be moving on to episode 7 and 8 as its own chapter. Now, episode 6, we shall move on to. Episode 6. There are a lot of different. This episode takes place on the chorus. So, you can obviously continue the mystery too, because that's the whole season that's building towards. But as the episode sits as itself, there's a lot of ideas you can work with. You can have a school of magic or a school of artificers or something, and have dead robots come to life and students get kidnapped. You can have that as its own mystery itself. And then at the end of this mini campaign or session, whatever way you want to do it, you can have it just be they defeat the bad guy. But the bad guy isn't dead. He's taken by someone else that's good, because he's useful or something. Or he's just dead, the bad guy in the story. But yeah, there's a lot of ideas. Like you can develop a very interesting skill, but deal with like going into the cat. That could be a point where all the party members meet for the first time. If you're doing it by episode, if you're just doing episode 6 ideas. But if you're doing it as a whole, it can just be adding more. I haven't focused on the characters much for these parts because I have plans to fully focus on them in their own separate video. Because the one thing I mentioned is this is kind of an Amber focused episode in a way, Amber Mark. But there's just a lot of cool ideas you can work with a school of magic itself. And then if you wanted to base your whole campaign off it, you could have different texts coming from the school, from within and external. But yeah, that's episode 6 anyways in a nutshell, the ideas. This just gives you a good idea and an investigation, a mystery for like, well, what these dead students, why are students getting kidnapped? That can be an element of this episode. So I hope you guys sorry, my mistake. We're not done yet. I'm just jumping. Now we move on to the final chapter, which will be episode 7 and 8 together. Episode 7 and 8. There's not much to say for episode 7. That's why I combined them. For both. Perfect for characters, actually. There's a lot to say for characters. But not as Pathfinder campaigns or something. The reason is episode 7 is all about talking. Like literally. It's about tensions rise, conflicts rise. It's all about we need to talk. Because it is Mark what seeks Eve's advice. Omni-Man wants Mark. Everyone wants Mark. And this will be more comfort because Omni-Man wants to tell the reason why he killed the Guardians of the Globe to Mark. So that can be the reveal or something. That can be the moment. It really depends how you're creating it. Your campaign. You could. The one thing I say about creating a campaign, like taking inspiration for Invincible or the source, you shouldn't just copy it blindly. You should understand why it works. Why does this work? I like this idea. How can we implement it in such a fun way? Like you can copy it, but you can change stuff around if you. But yeah, it's understanding why it works instead of just being like, yeah, just you can't just dump stuff in and then expect them to work because then you have a mud pie or something. Now, let's go for episode 8. Episode 8 could be a boss or something, or episode 8 overall is a finale where everything is revealed, everything comes together, the mysteries solved or revealed, and there's a confrontation, a whole ass fight between Mark and Omni-Man. There's a lot, and you can have a combat encounter, but yeah, in the actual, in 1B, we will fully go over the characters a bit more. Because the characters are important. Because the characters reveal with the sins. However, before, the last element I forgot to mention is the reason. The reason for Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe is because he's part of the Filtermite Empire. This is good for Pathfinder campaigns or world building because you can impose a external threat that's coming, a thing that cannot be stopped. You can have the Filtermite Empire, the reason yes, but also the next threat that will be solely coming to Earth. Even when the party members win the fight, they know that there's a worse threat coming, and that it could be more destruction. A external threat that can literally cause chaos. So it could be used as a way to hype up another film, like a empire of some kind. That is in the cosmos or in another dimension, and the party can prepare for it. And then you can build small encounters that build up the Filtermites in this. You could solve, not alternate, but you could have like quests that solve the disaster, like how much carnage the Filtermites been. Like you could have the party go to wards destroyed by Filtermites or something else. You could just build it up and then the tear of it itself. But yeah, those are all the 8 episodes done. The next video will be a video on that will be more focused on the characters side of this. I will probably I'll be doing some editing on this. But yeah, the other types of videos I'll be making, which is, I have plans, but I will see what people want from the other Pathfinder, the main Pathfinder video, the first one, because I can go any way with it. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and peace out. Thank you for watching. And if you have any comments below, comment them down below about Invincible, Pathfinder 2E, or Magic. But yeah, I won't be rushing the quality of these videos. But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.